Welcome to the Bytes podcast. My name is Mitch Slaney. I am the RedHat vendor business manager here at Bytes. Today I'm joined by
Kail Mistry. I'm an account solution architect at RedHat.
Daryl Kelly. I'm a solution architect at TD Synnex.
Brilliant. Thank you both for joining. Today we're here to talk about OpenShift Virtualization as an alternative to VMware. And probably to set the scene a little bit, it'd be really good to get an understanding from you, Daryl. What are the Broadcom changes and how are they affecting customers?
Yeah, so as you know, Broadcom bought VMware probably, 2 years ago now for something in the region of $61 billion. And as a result of that, we've seen some changes to VMware and how they operate. So the kind of changes that we've seen are primarily around the kind of licensing models that VMware use. So we have seen a shift to more bundled products. We've seen a change in the way that they're licensed towards a core-based model. And we've seen customers have their perpetual licenses removed. So all told, what that essentially means is that we're seeing some commercial impacts in customers. And I've seen various numbers like 3 times, up to even 9 times in a certain type of customer of increase of their VMware costs. And what that's driving is for people to look at alternative solutions. VMware is a great product, by the way. And I think some people will kind of continue to pay to access it. But other people are kind of starting to think, okay, well, what else can we do? How can we remove this pain of that extra cost? Or some people may be even thinking, how can we modernize and how can we move to a more modern platform that can support containerized workloads, for example?
Brilliant. Okay. Well, with that said, obviously that leads us really nicely into you, Kail. So RedHat have an alternative, OpenShift Virtualization. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So RedHat and virtualization aren't new. We've had a product called RedHat Enterprise Virtualization in the past, which the technology underpinning it was KVM, and that same technology has been brought into RedHat OpenShift Virtualization, where customers are now able to run containers and virtual machine workloads on the same platform. So this allows them to use KVM technologies and all the benefits of Kubernetes all together, and be able to manage and scale virtual machines like they would container workloads.
So you've got that tried and tested KVM that's been ingrained in Red Hat technology for 10 plus years, now running natively on OpenShift.
Exactly that. And
That's
customers
amazing.
have the benefit of being able to run not only RHEL workloads, but products like Windows Server workloads. And with Red Hat taking part in the Microsoft SVVP program, customers are able to actually get certified and supported Windows servers on Red Hat OpenShift
So I can run Windows on OpenShift, Windows virtual machines on OpenShift, and if I have a problem, still pick up the phone to Microsoft and get support.
Exactly that.
That's amazing. Can you tell us a bit more about RHEL on OpenShift? I've heard there's some licensing stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. So with Red Hat OpenShift, OpenShift Virtualization specifically, it needs to be run bare metal, so you have to run it directly on the bare metal host itself. And with that bare metal subscription, you actually get an unlimited entitlement of RHEL server subscriptions. So customers are actually able to run as many RHEL servers as supported on that single hypervisor platform as they need to run.
Wow. So not only can you save money in terms of licensing costs around OpenShift Virtualization, but you could potentially reduce your cost when it comes to your existing RHEL estate if you have one.
And I think they're the same price as well, right? So you can end up with if you've got a Red Hat Virtual Data Center license, i.e. the license that gives you unlimited machines, that's the same price as an entry-level OpenShift.
Yeah. Not just that as well. So as we know, just like with RHEL, you can run RHEL on-premise in the cloud and at the edge. With OpenShift, it's a very similar story. You can run OpenShift on-premise in your data centers at the edge as well as in the cloud. So where customers are looking to scale and grow, or also bring back into their own data centers, they can do that with OpenShift because it provides that consistent platform across the hybrid cloud.
Brilliant. So we've touched a little bit there on the licensing itself. How does that work? Is it subscription? Is it perpetual?
So Red Hat operates on a subscription model. So all of our products are driven from the open source community, and Red Hat bundle them up and create an enterprise supported level version of those products. And all of those products are available on a subscription basis. So you would pay annually in order to get the benefits of the subscription. And not only that, but you get like things like the knowledge base articles with those. You get all the CVE and vulnerability patching as they come out. And you got Red Hat support, which is, as we know, is world class.
OpenShift Vert, is it something that would stand toe to toe with VMware in an enterprise environment?
I think so. I think it stands up extremely well. When you look at Red Hat's history and what Red Hat is typically about is taking open source technology and making it enterprise ready. And I think that's exactly what they've done with Kubernetes and OpenShift. And now they've added the OpenShift virtualization layer to it too. So it's definitely an enterprise ready solution. I was reading an example the other day of a customer who had 132 nodes, I think, in a single cluster, running 6,000 virtual machines. So this is a solution that can scale.
Yeah.
It absolutely can. It absolutely can be run in the biggest of enterprises. I think one thing that might surprise people is I believe that OpenShift has 95 to 99% feature parity with VMware. So all of the stuff that you're used to being able to do with VMware, you can do with OpenShift virtualization. And I will admit, OpenShift is based on Kubernetes, right? So some of the things you do have to think about slightly differently.
Yeah.
But it will absolutely achieve the same outcome.
And does it look and feel like VMware, or is it completely different to somebody looking at it for the first time?
So Red Hat have done a very good job of lowering the barrier to entry for VMware admins. They've made the UI very simple and easy to use. So you can very quickly and very easily create and manage virtual machines within OpenShift. But it is a different platform, right? So, if you're a VMware admin today, you're going to need to learn a new platform.
Yeah.
But you won't need to know the ins and outs of Kubernetes.
Not straight away.
Right. Maybe that's somewhere you want to get to.
Yeah.
And there's all sorts of things that Red Hat are doing to support that. I know that they're practically giving away training with huge discounts on them at the moment. So if you want to learn the ins and outs of Kubernetes and your goal is to modernize those virtual machines into containers over time, then absolutely you can be supported in doing that by Red Hat and by Bytes.
So it would lend itself then to being a modernized platform, right? So you're not looking at the status quo. So that would require VMware admins, as you touched on, to sort of look at maybe progressing their skills in the future. You touched on training there. What else is what is the day one that a VMware admin would need to sort of pick up on?
So that's a really interesting question, and I don't know if I have a good answer for you, but it's still running KVM based virtual machines. It's still running virtual machines in a way that you are kind of familiar with, albeit slightly differently managed by Kubernetes. Day one, the tools that you're given will make it look and feel relatively easy. Under the covers, you're going to need to learn a different skill set to manage something long term. But there's all the support around you to do that.
I think a very relatable story is the journey we take developers on. So if we're talking Kubernetes for the minute, talking about containers, we have brand new developers coming in needing to learn a new platform, potentially needing to learn a new way of deploying and developing their code. I think OpenShift provides that abstraction layer where administrators of the platform, sure, might need to have a certain level of skill set, but when we're talking about being able to deploy virtual machines, being able to do this in an automated fashion and at scale, the barrier to entry immediately is reduced because of that level where the team managing the platform versus the teams deploying and providing the platform as a service are potentially two different teams.
Right. So not only does it lower that barrier, but also you have a consistent platform across all of your business departments.
Exactly that. And Red Hat's invested quite a lot in like the way you can interact with the platform through the GUI. Initially, when it first was released, it was a command line interface based way of managing the world. If you managed containers in the past, you'd know like a lot of it was OC based, like the command line. Now with the user interface and Red Hat investing in what it looks like and making it consistent feel across all products, and with OpenShift Virtualization coming in as an operator, it still has that same look and feel and that consistency. So when you're learning OpenShift Virtualization, you're not just learning the one technology, you're learning potentially the whole.
I think that's a really key point and a really key benefit around OpenShift, because of the fact that you've got the same platform in your own data center, on the cloud, at the edge, running both virtual machines and containers. That regardless of what you're doing within that organization, you've only got to learn that one platform.
Yeah.
And it's the same wherever you're managing it. You know, you're not going to VMware when you're running stuff on premise. You're not going to a different Amazon console or Microsoft console when you're running things in the cloud. It can all be done from one central location. And I think in terms of building skills for teams, that's really important.
Okay, so we've got a consistent platform across, wherever we're running our VM workloads. We've also got a team a VMware team that have got transferable skills. The next step would be looking at migration. Kail, if I come to you on that, how would that look in a Red Hat world? How would you migrate off of VMware onto a Red Hat OpenShift Virtualization?
Yeah, so initially we'd of course start with an assessment. We need to understand what customers are running, what type of workloads they have, what technologies are underpinning their current estate. I think that's a key factor in when we start having these conversations, and it's something we need to understand before we start proposing solutions. But for Red Hat ourselves, with OpenShift Virtualization, there is another operator called the Migration Toolkit for Virtualization, and it allows organizations to run an assessment on their current estate. Right. And VMware is one of the platforms that we actually can look at to migrating as a source from to OpenShift Virtualization, and essentially using this toolkit, organizations can take a map of all of their estate, understand and make a plan of action on how they want to migrate these. You can do these as cold migrations where you have to shut down one and move it to the new site, or you can do them as warm where there's less downtime and there's less interruptions to business activities.
Okay. I think migrations are scary, right?
Yeah,
they're really scary, and I think Red Hat, as Kail was just talking about, have done a great job with the migration toolkit for virtualization.
Quickly, is that included within the subscription?
Yep. So it's included with every OpenShift subscription, the migration toolkit for virtualization. So within OpenShift, there's a concept of something called an operator, and essentially, which is what Kail was just talking about, where you can just go and click a button to install something.
Right.
So that operator is included in every OpenShift installation.
Right.
And I think the key thing about the migration toolkit for virtualization is really what it does is de-risk the migration for organizations.
Right.
It does that assessment. So you can plug it into VMware and essentially map groups of virtual machines that you want to move. And it will look at those and say, there's a weird configuration on this one. you might want to have a look at this because we've picked up this particular issue, for example. And then you're able to do a warm migration, which essentially minimizes the downtime through that migration process. So I think it's a great tool. It both de-risks it and minimizes the amount of downtime on what could be, pretty critical applications.
So and once you've done that migration process, and say you've got a number of VMs on the platform, is there a step around then looking at maybe how you progress that to see if it's more cost effective to run that VM as a container?
So that's one of the benefits of the platform, right? You can run both of them together. As a platform, you can understand like the usage, the metrics, and actually what is on the host itself.
Right.
And so when it comes to being able to analyze that, you can start abstracting the virtual machine contents away to actually fully build out a big picture of what you're actually running on your estate. And using that gives you a lot of power because you can start porting some of those things to containers and actually reducing the virtual machine workload and actually start increasing the container workload. And this might not come straight away, but it's something that gives you the door to open in the future potentially when you want to start looking and modernizing. Something to add as well. So with OpenShift and Red Hat certified products, it's all certified on a common hardware. So a lot of our customers will use consistently the same technology providers, and with Red Hat certifications being very similar for both RHEL and OpenShift, we start looking at customers not actually needing to procure a lot of new hardware. A lot of the time we can go in and they might need to buy like 20% new hardware to get their initial cluster up and running, but once they're past that certain point, they can begin migrating VMs and converting those existing ESXi hosts into as a worker node into OpenShift virtualization.
I think that's an amazing point to talk about, to be fair, because that's one of the kind of barriers, isn't it? Is I don't want to go buy a whole lot of new hardware to do a migration,
especially if you're halfway through a refresh cycle as well, right?
Yeah,
It
exactly.
can be so expensive, and then that probably outweighs the the benefits of moving off of the VMware platform, right? So
all of our customers are on different stages of their journey. Some of them have just bought new hardware. Some of them are just going end of life with their current hardware, and some of them are moving to the cloud. And so with this technology, it encompasses all of those use cases and empowers all of them to be able to migrate and undertake this transformation without having any doors not left open for them.
Okay. So listeners to this podcast, Kail, they'll want to know, any relatable customer success stories. Do you have any that you can go through it?
Yeah, so of course we're having this conversation a lot. I'm sure like you're also having these conversations a lot with customers. But Red Hat have actually some customers that we've adopted this technology quite early, and we've been fortunate enough to have their support in terms of being able to adopt the technology, as we are driven through the open source, right? And they've been able to contribute back and help us drive the direction of the product. And we have one big customer, which is a retail organization, and they actually have moved a large quantity of their current data center onto OpenShift virtualization. But what this has allowed them to actually do is expand that clustering to the edge. And so, as we know, retail has a lot of endpoint stores that they need to be able to manage devices within. And so with the power of OpenShift virtualization, they can actually manage their Kubernetes and virtual machines deployments at the edge using Red Hat OpenShift, and then using an OpenShift virtualization, as well as being able to manage that then in their own data center. And using technologies such as like advanced cluster management, they've been able to manage that entire estate.
Yeah.
And another similar customer who have actually gone through a large virtual machine transformation project recently, actually adopted the support of Red Hat Consulting initially to help drive the understanding and the templating to be able to see what the migration path looks like, understanding the difference between traditional VMs, certain Snowflake VMs that might not be able to be supported on the platform. And they're actually gone from migrating like 10 to 15 virtual machines a week to up to hundreds, up to 1,000 virtual machines a week. And this scale has allowed them to exponentially increase the rate of transformation across the organization. And alongside with that comes obviously like the not just the cost savings, but also the comfort of knowing that they're able to do this, they're able to do these migrations at scale, and not just to Red Hat, but to any platform that's out there and available.
Okay, so you've mentioned two rather sort of large retail organisations there and big mass migrations. I've actually got an example. I can't reference the particular university, but I've got an example where we've worked with a university to actually on a much smaller scale. So obviously universities driven by grants, etc. They were looking to install a new HPC lab for their students. The hardware was taking a while to get delivered, really beefy, powerful servers. So you can imagine lots of CPUs, lots of cores, etc. In that time, they had several different costs that came back from VMware, with the last cost being too much for them. They simply couldn't afford to go ahead and do that with the grant money that they had. And working alongside the university and Red Hat, we managed to help them review OpenShift virtualization, and they've now got that in place. They're running OpenShift virtualization, and obviously that's just for a customer's a university's lab. Obviously they've got a much wider VMware infrastructure across their estate, so that's probably another good example of it's not just big retail customers or thousands of VMs. Actually, you can scale it all the way back, and you can find individual use cases for particular customers. So we're coming to the end of our podcast now, and one thing we like to do with our guests is if you could give us, both one of your key takeaways from this conversation. And if I start with yourself first, Kail.
Yeah, so for me, the biggest takeaway is actually being able to understand and empathize with these organizations, and especially the individuals within the organizations. For us, we can say it's a tried and tested technology, but it's still new for a lot of organizations, and the teams that are going to be running these platforms, and the support and the training that's going to be needed to be undertaken with them. So for me, the biggest takeaway is understanding that, make sure I'm empathizing with them with that, and supporting them on this journey, because it's not going to happen overnight, right? It's going to be potentially a long journey, right, that we're going to have to undertake with them, and the support of our partners as well. So that's one of the biggest takeaways for me is that process and that journey.
It does very much feel like we're on the cusp of things changing within the industry, and other technologies coming to the forefront, not just OpenShift virtualization, but there are others out there as well, as a sort of a natural replacement. So Daryl, what's your takeaway?
Yeah, I think if you look at a lot of what the analysts are saying, there is a huge growth in the adoption of containerized workloads. And we are still somewhat in the beginning phase of that. As you said, it feels like there's a kind of a change coming in the industry, and I think that's what we're kind of feeling. So I think my kind of key takeaway would be that what OpenShift and OpenShift virtualization allows you to do is to have a platform that can run those virtualized workloads now in a comparable way to what you're probably already doing, but it's a platform that can grow with you. So it can evolve alongside you as you look to modernize in the future into those more containerized applications.
Brilliant. So effectively use this event as a bit of a catalyst to look at change, right, and modernize your business on that front. So and Bytes can certainly help do that. We've got a number of fully funded workshops that we can offer for customers. So we have a navigating the new Broadcom landscape workshop. Basically takes customers through that process of how can I reduce my VMware footprint, reduce my cost, can I refactor servers that I currently have to reduce that footprint, but also importantly, actually, can I look at alternatives? And we go through all of those alternatives with customers and look at the real cost of change, right? Because there's one idea putting a price in front of a customer, but actually there is a cost of change, as we've discussed today. thank you both for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you along.
It's been great to be here.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
It's just great to sort of have a real good deep dive into the VMware and the challenges that customers are having and the alternatives out there.
Brilliant, thank you.